All right, cool. So that is the kickoff for us with cinema, and now we move over to Netflix and Friends, or actual Netflix. I think this is actually a straight up fight this week between Netflix and cinema. So we have a film that Sharon you saw called How It Ends. Now,
Yes.
now, okay, I have to say these are some good titles this week. So far, these I think the unbearable weight of massive talent. I would watch that film based on the title alone. How It Ends that intrigues me and makes me want to actually sort of like watch it. So tell us, what is How It Ends about?
How It Ends is an apocalyptical drama, as opposed to a post-apocalyptical drama. This is basically how we see the end of the world unfold through the eyes of one particular man. And the particular man is played by Theo James, and he is basically on he's lived with his partner on like the west coast, and he has traveled to the east coast for a meeting, and he meets up with his partner's family, played by Forrest Whittaker, is his like prospective father-in-law. And he has gone out there to sort of talk to them about getting married to their daughter. They don't really approve of their relationship. It's not always easy. Forrest Whitaker's like an ex-army. He's very controlling. He's very particular about what he wanted for his daughter. And this young lawyer, played by Theo James, wasn't particularly it.
Yeah.
So just as he sort of bottles, basically asking his dad's permission, and just as they're about to go, something happens. There's some event on the west coast that they don't know what's happened, but the television starts reporting that we've lost all contact with California, we've lost all contact with that western seaboard, and they don't know what's happening. And then as they're watching this news, the news stations start to fail, and some of the technology they've got starts to fail. And so they decide that because that is where their daughter stroke girlfriend is, not stroke because they're not the same person, but it's Theo James's girlfriend stroke fiance and Forrest Whitaker's daughter. They think that we have to go and find out what's happening. So it then sort of turns into this road trip, whereas as they cross country, they basically see some of the rules of civilization start to break down, where because the infrastructure has more or less sort of ceased to exist, they have difficulties about finding food, finding fuel, getting across the country, people suddenly wanting to be competitive about access to fuel and food. And we've seen with our own recent pandemic that behaviors that you would thought that wouldn't happen, suddenly people do become, it's all about me, when they are pushed into a corner. Because we've seen, when we've gone to the supermarkets, instead of just buying what we need, people suddenly started stripping shelves, and we all saw that within the last 2 years. The situation where he's trying to cross country, and suddenly people who were would have been perfectly civil to him days before are now only after their own interests. And so he and Forrest Whitaker encounter sort of this hostility, these different trials and tribulations, and that as sort of civilization breaks down, as well as the natural world begins to start shows like signs of cracking. They have like there's phenomena, there's weird storms, there's birds that migrate in sort of weird patterns, and they different people along the way. So it's like a road trip, it's like an odyssey, where at each point in the journey you have these encounters, these events, these different signposts to say this is the world as we recognize it, but it's beginning to fall apart. And so this is basically the story of the film. It's this road trip as he gets further west, the more things start to fall apart.
So okay, so with that general premise, what did you think of the film?
I thought it had some interesting ideas. It reminds me a little bit of a book I read a long time ago called The Death of Brass, which was set just after the Second World War in England, and how rapidly that just depicts how rapidly civilization sort of breaks down. And I suppose in some regards this does the same thing, where it talks about how we aren't just going to sort of go down like a gentle decline, it's going to like fall off a cliff. It's going to be sudden and dramatic.
Or that civilization is quite fragile.
Yes. So there's interesting things. It had some interesting things to say. There's some of the acting was better than I thought it would be, because in some of these, Forrest Whitaker can either be very good or he can be a bit hammy.
Yeah.
A bit.
Yeah, let's just say that Rogue One has sort of like, I think Rogue One has put Forrest Whittaker in the bin as far as Sean is concerned.
Treachery.
Because he does have a bit of the whole. What's the expression? Is it chewing wallpaper or something?
Oh no, Chewie in the scenery.
Chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had. There was moments when he was that, because he's this ex-army guy, and I didn't always believe that he was. Quite frankly, and just the way he talked, I'm thinking, I don't believe that you were in the army for 30 years. I'm sorry, I just don't believe you.
Yeah.
And so you have that little that takes you out of the drama, because you think, I'm just not convinced by the character. So there are elements where he was good, and there are elements where I'm thinking, no, I don't buy it. But on the whole, I thought they did it very well. The people they encounter, the choices people make, some of the scenes, and yeah, I thought on the whole it was done as well as you can make this sort of film, which is purely speculative and a bit depressing. Yeah.
So, how many stars would you give it?
I would give it a 3-star rating, because it's basically a road trip where you meet strange people, and we have seen that tale before. And so I don't think offered anything particularly new, but it was interesting and what they did have to offer, and it sort of kept me entertained for what it was. But I don't think it ever elevated into me thinking about what deeper issues it could raise, about society.
Sharon, did you ever see the film Greenland, the Gerald Butler film?
No.
All right, cool. Never mind. Then there's no compare contrast that you can do on that, because I was wondering if I was gonna try and compare the two of them. But what you were saying about it reminds me about a film called Blowing Up Right Now that I saw a couple of weeks back, and this is a small indie movie that sounds like the film you're talking about, but with less money. Even less money there. So it's about two people who are in a relationship on the West Coast as well, and then they get this message coming through that there's missiles coming over. It's going to wipe out the entire West, and it's about what people are going to do, and it's all like a sort of ground level of these two people in a relationship, and what are they going to do when they're told that they only have 12 hours to live before it all goes up. What are you going to do with? Oh, and also. Oh, okay. Now remembering also some other films. There's a film with Steve Carell and Keira Knightley called "Seeking a Friend for the End of the World." Yeah, which sounds like it covers similar ground.
Yeah, I think there definitely falls into this sort of group of films about apocalypses rather than the post-apocalypse.
Yeah.
Not done in like that dreadful, what was it, Moonfall thing that I saw not so long ago. This is more like it's trying to pull it down. This sort of like pulls it down to like an individual level, like Monsters. With that film a few years ago.
Oh yeah, Monsters. Yeah.
Yeah. So where people, you see it on the ground of it, and you never see the big picture. Like in this film, it's not a particular spoiler. You never actually see what it is.
Yeah.
That has caused this. You never find out. They drop some hints and you see some evidence of, an event, but you never actually see. I think a lot of these, you may not do. If you're like a small person living your quiet life, and if there is an apocalypse somewhere, you're not necessarily going to know exactly the minutiae of how it came about.
Yeah, yep.
So, yeah, in that regard, it's interesting, but yeah, we've been down this road before, so I don't think offered anything particularly new, but it was still, entertaining for all that. So I would definitely give it a 3-star.
Yeah. Also, Don't Look Up. Oh man, this is like a fertile subgenre. Don't Look Up as well. All right, cool. So 3 stars for How It Ends.